Okay, well, thank you all for coming. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Where is the flag? There we go. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I think we're running a little bit. Yeah, it's 1:44 in the afternoon, April 19th. And as far as amendments, Dave, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments to the agenda.
Okay, great. Okay, next item is the approval of the meeting minutes of our January 31st, 2023. Looking for a motion. Seconded by Mr. Holtzinger. Discussion. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Great, there's our minutes. Okay, our next item is an industry update. It's a pleasure to have our guests from Denver International Airport, and Crystal D. Herrera is presenting our update from Denver. So thank you, Crystal.
Well, thank you all so much for having us. We truly appreciate this. I want to acknowledge several of our team members who are here. First, Steve Lee, who serves with all of you. Proud to have him.
Thank you.
Steve, they told me they had some good stories, so we'll have to talk about it. Rachel Gruber, who many of you know, who's our manager of government affairs. And then also Rita Aguilar, who is new to this team, but we're very excited to have her. She's our Vice President of Government Affairs and Global Public Policy. So Rita and I are catching a plane to DC shortly this afternoon. So I'm going to move through at a pretty healthy clip, but I want to make sure we have time for questions and conversations because this is a really important conversation for all of us, and we're very excited to be here. I also did want to acknowledge Jason. The three of us actually spent the day with him in Loveland yesterday, checking out the remote tower and the great partnership he's got with AIM. So lots of interesting opportunities there. So wanted to acknowledge that as well. We'll go to the next slide, please. So Den, and I think many of you know this, the airport is owned by the city, second largest airport in the world, third busiest airport in the world, 6 runways. We are currently undergoing a process with the FAA to actually expand to a 7th right now. But obviously, you know, our square footage and our massive land gives us tremendous opportunity at the airport. Next slide, please. So done by the numbers, this is interesting because prior to the pandemic, Denver International was not even one of the top 10 busiest airports in the world. But the pandemic really sped up our growth because we all know, what did Americans do during the pandemic? We traveled. We said, we're still going to go places. And so that really sped up our growth. And we're now the 3rd busiest airport in the world. And so we're very excited that all of our air service that we lost during the pandemic, all of our international air service has now returned. So we have regained all of that air service. And the Tokyo flight that United runs from Den to Tokyo just came back online just a few weeks ago. So we're very excited about that. But you know, over 210 nonstop destinations, over 25 international destinations. I think a lot of you have seen a lot of the effort we're putting into a flight to Africa. Also, you know, looking at other destinations across the globe, but we are continually trying to expand that air service. We're really mindful of some of the gaps that we have with certain parts of the world. Of most important to us, though, is the people who live and work and derive their livelihood from Den. So over 30,000 badged employees. And we're really focused on how can we take care of those employees, not just those employees that work for the city and county of Denver, but all the employees who work and, you know, are employed, whether it's through the airlines, through the janitorial, through the concessions. How do we protect all those employees in the ecosystem? Because we know that that workforce is such a precious resource. And then, of course, Colorado's largest economic engine at over $35 billion a year. Next slide, please. So Vision 100. So good news for all of us is that Phil Washington decided to withdraw his nomination from the FAA administrator and stay. And huge loss for the country because I really believe he would have been tremendous for FAA. But we certainly count ourselves lucky that he is going to stay at Denver International Airport. And so Vision 100 is what Phil put together with all of us to think about how do we make sure that this airport is prepared for the future. We know that 100 million annual passengers is just a few years away, and we have to make sure that we're ready to meet that demand because they're coming whether the airport is ready or not. So up on the orange banner there, you'll see these are what we call our guiding principles. So you've seen everything from sustainability and resiliency. We want to be the greenest airport in the world. We feel like that is something that is achievable, and we want to make sure that that happens here in Colorado. Equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. Cornerstone of making sure that we are being thoughtful about our workforce and the opportunities for everybody involved, and making sure that for our passengers too, everybody feels welcome. We have people from all over the world, so many different nationalities, so many different countries. We want to make sure that no matter where you come from or what you're going through, you feel welcome at Denver International Airport. Operational excellence, right? No stranger to all of us in here, making sure that the operation is safe, efficient, and secure at all times. And then enhancing the customer experience, always making sure that our passengers are front of mind and being really thoughtful and innovative about how we continue to serve them and continue to innovate in that area. So it's no shocker that pillar one is about people, empowering our people. We put that first. We put that first for a reason. And you heard me talk about this earlier, is that we are so mindful about the gaps in aviation workforce. We're all dealing with that no matter where you work, right? We all know that retaining talent right now is huge, and that we don't have enough people that are coming into this industry. And so not only do we want to make sure that we're retaining and growing the people we have today, we want to make sure that we are really being thoughtful and strategic about developing that next generation of aviation talent for tomorrow. And so through the Center of Equity and Excellence in Aviation, which I'll talk more about a little bit later, we are really focused on that next generation, on creating pathways, career pathways for our existing employees. And like I said, not just the city employees that work at the airport, but all the badged employees in the airport ecosystem. And that is really an area where we want to partner with everybody in this room, because it's not just about Denver International Airport. It's about making Colorado and the Rocky Mountain region the global hub for aviation talent. We want people to say, hey, where are we going to get the best talent in the world on aviation? We want them to say, Rocky Mountain region, Colorado, let's go. And, that's one of the reasons we were up talking to Jason yesterday. We were going to be making a lot of trips and going around and talking to a lot of folks in this room and a lot of the smaller regional and rural airports, because we believe that they all have a really important role to play in developing that pipeline, right? Not everybody's going to be a commercial pilot. Other people are going to do different things. And we want to make sure that we're ready and we have a really balanced approach to developing that talent pipeline. And then you see under empowering our people, employee innovation. We know, right, I'm the chief of staff. I am not on the front line, right? The best ideas in the airport may not be from the three of us. It's going to be from those folks, frontline workers. And so how can we cut that red tape that we all deal with to help say, hey, how can we do this better, faster, smarter, and make sure that our employees feel that innovative spirit and are able to do that? So pillar two, you'll see growing our infrastructure. We've got all those major projects going on at DEN. I think one thing we did really well was that, when the pandemic came, there were days where I was out in the checkpoint. It was like me and a few TSA people were looking at each other like, what are you doing today? Hanging out. And we decided to double down and speed up our construction projects rather than hold back. We were like, there's nobody here. What better time to have noisy hammers and all this stuff swinging during the day than when there's nobody here? So, you'll hear me talk about this a little bit later, but we opened up 39 new gates, right? And we really accelerated that during the pandemic. We also accelerated the Great Hall project, the terminal project that, everybody's familiar with. But we're also looking at updating the master plan. And, again, with all that 53 square miles around DEN, how do we activate that? How do we make the most of that? How do we come up with some additional revenue sources for the airport? And then pillar three, right? This is the, not nearly as sexy as the growing our infrastructure, but it's asset management, right? Denver International is almost 30 years old, and our walkolators, our escalators, all of that, right? They're dated, they're aging. And so our pipes are aging, all of that. And so we're really doing a very methodical top to bottom review of the state of all of our assets and trying to get ahead in terms of making sure that we're taking care of all of that. Because we think that is so critical to maintaining this operational excellence in everything that we do at the airport. And then expanding our global connections, really looking at how we continue to expand our domestic network, our global network. And we're also looking at some additional air cargo opportunities. That hasn't been a space that Denver International has really played in that much, but we think there's some opportunities there. We're never going to be Memphis. We know that. But we do think that there's some definite opportunities there in partnership with everybody in this room. Next slide, please. So you heard me talk about 100 million annual passengers. Based on our numbers, we're projecting that we're going to hit that, see where that black line is on Vision 100, right around 2032, but it could come faster. And so the pressure is on, right, to deliver and make sure that, again, the entire facility is ready for that. And, you know, a good example of that is our terminal. The terminal was built for 50 million people. Yeah, we're going to double that in the next couple of years. And so that's why that project, in addition to moving up security and making it more secure and safer, is so important, because we have to modernize to make way for all the people that are coming. Next slide, please. We're having a technical difficulty. We'll get there in a second. While we're on the slide and they figure it out, well, that's a fun picture. I wish that was flying at Den. We got it. Okay, so empowering our people. Let's go to the next slide, Rachel. You heard me talk about the Center of Equity and Excellence in Aviation. We are actually building a physical space for this center at Den. And so as part of the Great Hall project, the final phase, which is renovating the terminal, we actually included in that budget space to renovate over 70,000 square feet. So if you think of the plaza at Den, if you take the train, you're coming through the Hotel Transit Center right in front of the West End, we have the ice skating rink, or we do putt-putt golf during the summer concerts. There are 70,000 square feet of unfinished space. And we had always saved that because we weren't sure, would we do something with TSA? What would we do there? That's where we're building the center. And what we love about that is that if you think about all the people that we want to serve at the center, we want to make sure it's accessible, that we're removing barriers. So it's right off the A line. It's in the Hotel Transit Center. So people don't have to drive. They could take RTD. They could take, whether it's the rail or bus, being really thoughtful about that. We're also going to have a childcare aspect to this as well, because we know that some folks here might need that in order to get their training. So we are very excited about having this on site at the airport and being able to really build out that space. Next slide, please. So the other thing that we are working on is called the Equity and Infrastructure Project. And this is something that Phil founded with John Picari, who's the former deputy administrator. And so, you know, the Equity and Infrastructure Project is really focused on the recognition that we're trying to help small business and minority and women-owned contractors excel and get opportunities in the infrastructure space. But most of the time they're subs, right? City County of Denver is the same way. We run an excellent MWE program that is really a subcontractor program. Federal government's the same way. And so this is about partnering with major infrastructure entities across the United States on trying to proactively identify prime contractor opportunities for these small businesses. And so we are really excited about this. And we made a commitment that by 2025, we're going to double the number of prime contracts awarded to historically underutilized businesses as compared to 2021. That's a tall order. It's not going to be easy. And what we did is we baselined where we were in 2021. How many folks did we actually award as primes? And then we actually did an exercise internally and said, what are the projects that are coming up? What are the projects where it makes sense to have, you know, primes that are historically underutilized businesses? And we actually identified those projects in advance. And if, for example, a historically underutilized business, if we're not able to make that opportunity reality, then we need to replace that opportunity to make sure that we hit those numbers. So that is something that we are doing with a lot of partnership on the national level with a lot of different DOTs and other folks. But this is what also very interesting is it's all modes of transportation. So we've got folks in partnership from transit, from water, from different aspects. So it's been very exciting to see this happen. Next slide, please. So growing our infrastructure. Next slide. So this is a picture of what the Great Hall will look like when it's completed in the 2027, in year 2027. And so what's so great about this, right? Right now, this is South Checkpoint. This is all security lanes right now, right? This is all security lanes. When you come in off the hotel, what do you see? You are hit in the face with people, right? And you're hit in the face with TSA. And what we're saying is we want to give the people its airport back. We want to actually make it fun. We want to make it so that people can come hang out and enjoy. And, you know, and then the checkpoint is going to be on that north end of security up top. But this is a really different concept. And we've also got a children's play area. We're really mindful. There's lots of people who travel with families. I'm a mother of 3. Trust me. My kids are like, what am I supposed to do? And so, you know, it's really trying to do that and having, you know, the restaurants, but having a gathering space, right? Moving the transformation of the airport, not just as a place, as a, you know, a terminal to just run through and jump on a plane, but if people want to hang out, it's a destination. So we're very excited about that. And we'll certainly keep you posted as this project continues to unfold and make progress. I will note that for those of you that have flown out of Den in the last, you know, year and a half, we did open up that middle section with those new ticket counters for United, Southwest, and Frontier, our 3 largest carriers. It is a much different experience. And so we are going to be renovating so that all those carriers have that same experience while we move up security and have that new equipment, new security lanes, all of that. So we're looking forward to that. Next slide, please. So the gate expansion. So you heard me say that we were bullish during the pandemic and we decided to go faster. And so we did. And so we opened up 39 new gates, which is no easy feat, as you all know. But we're really excited about a lot of the modernization that happened as well, in addition to giving the airlines more gates. You know, new seating, new charging stations, you know, really opening up and making the terminal, the concourses feel light and bright. And so that's just really important for all of us as we continue to expand. And the great news about the way the airport was designed is that we built these gates at a much lower cost than LAX, LaGuardia, or anyone else, because the way our airport is laid out, we just pushed out the ends of the concourse. So we actually have the opportunity, we didn't push out all of Concourse C. We could actually add more gates off C West and add another 12 gates off there. You know, as many of you know, that the airport was programmed for a potential Concourse D, and that certainly is an option, but there's also other options we're looking at as floor that would have walkable gates.
What are you thinking about
We wouldn't
lunch?
have to put
Shall I
that
start it? I'm just gonna heat up the chicken. I thought you were doing that earlier.
Hey, I would love some chicken
Ironing.
too. All good. So we'll go to the next. Oh,
All right, well, I'm
I
gonna.
have a photo of this, but there are patios. If any of you have not yet flown off the new gates, the patios are amazing and they're so Colorado, and we love that. Because you've either got a view of the Rockies and the runway, or you're looking at the plains. It's just very cool. It's very Colorado. We're super proud to showcase the state. But it's just something that other airports don't have. Next slide, please. They just wanted to see the concourses longer. That's all. There we go. Okay, so trains to the gates. So this is important, right? So many of these train cars are actually original to when the airport opened. And some of you may be like, yeah, no kidding, we can tell. But I understand, I ride these things all the time. So right now it's tight, it's cramped, and in the summer it's really hot, right? So we are actually getting 26 train cars this summer, and we will have those up, as it says up here, Q1 2024. That is so important because these cars are dated. We need to have better ventilation, better lighting, more space. It definitely feels of a different generation of train car. So we're very excited to have that. But in addition, we're also getting additional train cars because we want to add on to how many train cars we can run at a time to get more passengers through from the terminal to the gates. And that's really important. Something I will touch upon, you know, if there was a flaw in the airport's design, it was that you can only get to B and C on the train. Because let's be honest, a busing operation is like, in a pinch, in an emergency, in the middle of the night when you got a few hours, sure, you can hold your nose and make it, but it's not a solution. And so we did do a request for information and proposals last year. We did get some really interesting ideas that we're evaluating as we look at our 10-year CIP and how we're planning. So it's an interesting question, but it also ties to the comment I made about we're looking beyond just what was initially planned at the airport for Concourse D. We're actually looking at walkable gates because in our mind, the better solution may be not digging another trench and adding another train, because that's what it would require to hit D. It may be taking pressure off the existing train, keeping it in good service, making sure we're modernizing it, but having gates that people can actually walk to off the sides of the terminal. So lots of exploring. That's part of the fun aspect of our jobs, but wanted to share that as well. Next slide. So 7th runway, you heard me say this at the beginning. We are having conversations with FAA on a potential 7th runway. Unclear, right, which location it could be. But we're looking at that. And while they're looking at a potential 7th, they're also looking at a location for potential 8th as well, just so we can be thoughtful in our planning. But we are very much in the planning stages. We have not yet begun the environmental stage, which, as you all know, takes quite a while. But a very important endeavor and process for all of us as we think about being ready for this growth and really being thoughtful about our stewardship of this airport. Next slide, please. Next slide. So asset management. So this is a snapshot of what we're maintaining at Denver International Airport. So you've got 7 million square feet of space, plus that additional 1.2 million that was just added for that 39 new gates. We've got the 6 runways with potential 7th and 8th on the way. And then 300 lane miles of roadway. People forget that, right? Pena, right? We also maintain that. And so that's a lot of work as well. And then, of course, over 34,000 parking spaces, 320 escalators, elevators, and other walk-elators, right? Operating 24/7. I have to say, when I'm traveling and one of those escalators don't work and I'm carrying bags and I got kids, it is not fun. My guys hear about it, they know, but everybody has that experience, right? It's keeping those in good working order. And then our replacement of what we're doing. And of course, last but not least, all the restrooms we take care of that we have to renovate and make sure that are clean. And we have added new restrooms as part of our terminal program and our gate expansion, but we know that our restrooms are dated. I mean, if you go in one of the old restrooms, it feels like the 90s and not in a good way. So, we're very mindful of that, and it's a lot. But again, this is top of mind for us because we have to be all over this in order to make sure that we're keeping that airport in the condition it needs to be. Next slide, please. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions, any conversation, and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Crystal. Does anybody have any questions? You're well on your way. It's been impressive to watch, and it's a pleasure to be a part of Colorado and be a part of this. So thank you so much for your time and very robust planning. So congratulations.
Well, we appreciate it. And, we're very proud to have Steve Lee as part of this group, and any partnership we can do together, we would love to do. I would also just note, we're actually getting on a plane to go meet with the Colorado delegation on FAA reauthorization.
Yes.
We did include support for the remote tower program that's going up, as well as some other, staffing and workforce increases that we think benefit everybody. So we want to be a good partner. It really takes all of us to make this work. So just let us know how we can be of service, and we appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we certainly appreciate the wonderful relationship that we have, and let's just keep doing some good things together. So thank you. And likewise, if there's anything we can do to support Dan, please let us know.
Well, absolutely. And we'd love to host you. Maybe we'll have to host a happy hour on one of those outdoor patios.
There you go.
There you go.
There you
That's
go.
a good start.
All right.
All right.
Well,
Thank you,
very
guys.
much. Catch your airplane. Catch your flight. So, all right. Next item is board member reports. Let's start with Steve.
Okay, so
Thank you so much.
you just heard the Den update, and thanks for coordinating that. And I guess I do have a question. It's for Jason. Why didn't you tell me that they were coming? I could have paid you $10 not to get me fired. But, so I'm not going to give an update on Den specifically. And looking through the agenda, I noticed that many of the items I considered talking about for the Airport Association are going to be covered somewhere within the agenda. So I really only have just one thing I wanted to raise for just awareness. I mentioned that some of the Colorado airports have been talking about a concern. The concern is that there's a TSA budget proposal that proposes to eliminate TSA funding a person to watch the exits from the sterile area at an air carrier airport to the public area. And that's a simple kind of a thing, but what that would do if that happens is shuffle that responsibility and cost to the airport itself. That's not a big deal for Denver International Airport because of the way we already operate. But I think for some of our Colorado smaller air carrier airports, that could be a significant impact on their budgets. So just something to be aware of and watch. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I will end my report, but I'll just kind of look forward to some of the other conversation that's already built into the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of the big story out on the plains is everyone's getting out from the winter and getting ready to go. We've got a lot of ag operations popping back up. And obviously a lot of our projects are getting kicked off out there. Talked to Greg at Ray, their taxiway project they've been trying to get going is out to bid at the moment. Talked to Charlie at Sterling, and it looks like their ramp project got moved to next year. I'm not sure on the funding on that or why the reason for that was, but Lamar got a brand new self-serve fuel farm for avgas. They're excited about that, being able to serve a lot of that transient traffic with a self-serve option. Talked to Luke at Lahana. First time I met him, he's new at Lahana, Luke Sullenberger. He didn't have much of an update, but it was nice to meet him, and he's kind of working into his new role there. Brett at Springfield, they're still waiting. They've got a combination ramp taxiway project that kind of developing a new plan to put that together as one project, and looks like it's going to bid next January for those guys. Talked to Phil at Trinidad. They've got a taxiway apron project that's starting in May. One of the things that he wanted me to point out was on that ramp project, they are still going to have access to fuel there at Trinidad while they've got a lot of that area blocked off. So if anybody's going in and out of Trinidad, it should be able to take care of that. They also got a grant for a terminal upgrade there, and just received FAA approval for use for some non-aviation use on the I guess they've got a small acre, 12 acres of ground there that's on the other side of a road that they're going to be able to get some revenue that's non-aviation, which is not super easy to do with the FAA. But so that's exciting for those guys to get another opportunity for some revenue. Talked to Greg at Pueblo, and their Wings and Wheels show went really well. They wanted to give you you CDOT guys a hard time that you didn't jump in the snowcat and go down there for that event. So, but he said it went really good, and got some exciting stuff. The FAA is doing some investigation and research into a new control tower out there with using infrastructure, bipartisan infrastructure money. Oh yeah, Burlington. So Burlington, we we got quite a bit of things going on this year. We've got the generator that's going to be coming online here later this year. Having the opportunity to have a backup generator is going to be amazing. That's going to be funded with infrastructure money, the BIL money. Got the plan for the new taxiway is in progress for next year. And also our simulator, we're really excited. We've got all the infrastructure in place. We've remodeled our back area to have a separate space for the simulator, and got everything ready for that. That actually just was finished. The production was finished last week, and they are getting ready to ship it. So it'll be here in about a week and a half or so, and have all kinds of fun. So
Excellent.
that's all I have for you.
Very good. Thank you, Daniel. Truby?
All right, guys, thanks for having me. The pilot organization's report has been printed for everybody. Since we're running a little low on time, I'll just keep it brief and kind of keep it highlighted to the fact that most everybody is doing scholarships for spring, summer scholarships, big time for scholarships right now for most all of the organizations. 99s, CABA, CPA, Women in Aviation, everybody. Let's see. Civil Air Patrol is going to get a lot more flying going, which is great. They didn't have as much flying in the start of the year, and now they're going to get back up to flying. A lot of board elections are coming up as well for the organizations. The Colorado Aviation Historical Society just held their board elections last week. And yeah, that's just a nutshell, just everybody having social events and staying active, and yeah.
Excellent.
Yep,
Well,
that's
thank you,
about it.
Trimby. And just for everyone to know, she put together a very detailed update on all the associations. So thank you very much, Trimby. And hope everyone shares that with their respective airports and their contacts. So thank you. Mr. Holtzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's interesting to follow all the construction projects at West Slope airports that are ongoing. Interested to hear about the FAA conversations that have occurred at Aspen, Centennial. Another interesting bit of news, a startup has acquired technology that was produced in our backyard at the Colorado School of Mines to actually get rid of PFAS. So it'll be really cool to see if that the process is successful, and hope the company will be as well. And that's all for my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of things I want to talk about that are very relevant to all of us in Colorado, but they're happening probably on a broader basis. You know, it was great at lunch or after lunch to have the conversation with the CDOT folks about the importance of aviation to our economy and certainly at a local level. And one of the projects, of course, we shared was what's happening with the remote tower, and not to steal any of Bill Payne's glory here, but I do want to talk for a moment about the impact of Leesburg, Virginia shutting down, which again, from an economic impact, you know, this is a airport that before the tower, remote tower was put in place, had 53,000 operations. That was in 2018, and this year they're going to exceed 80,000 operations. And they talk about the airport operators and the local city councils and others talk about the number of business jets now that have come to that airport because it does have towered facilities. We talk about what that means to us to get the airlines up at Loveland. And so with the FAA's decision to close down the tower on June 14th, and Bill tells me that might be extended a little bit. Certainly there's a lot of organizations that are lobbying to have that continue through the end of the year. What it really reflects is a lack of leadership at an FAA level for a number of reasons. And you know, we talk about that. We're going to continue to talk about it. But we need to take a lesson also from watching what's happened in Leesburg. And of course, our project's different than that one. But the importance of the FAA stepping in and stepping up as it relates to deployment of remote towers and the impact that it would have on our economies, both at a local, state, and national level, is part of why we continue to advocate, and I think part of why we continue to support the project up in Loveland. Yeah, Crystal talked about this too. You know, again, watching what Phil Washington go through his confirmation hearings and watching that unfold, it was unfortunate. I think for us, like she said, we benefit that we get to keep Phil for a while longer. But it again comes at a time when there's a huge void in leadership at the senior levels within the FAA. And the critical time that's happening as they left and went to the airport to go talk about this in Washington, of course, this is a reauthorization year. And, you know, we were fortunate. I think one of the things that that has been proven in having a 5-year reauthorization is that gave continuity and consistency, at least FAA funding that we benefited from. Of course, prior to that, we went many years without that reauthorization, but it's going to happen again. And, so one, I think all of us are that who can do it are advocating for, again, a 5-year reauthorization. There is a lot of changes. Of course, we have Sam Graves, who's the ranking Republican from Missouri that now takes over the transportation and infrastructure. And so one of the things that he said is that that it's time for the industry and the FAA in particular, especially for the industry affected to advocate for the industry. His quote was, "We have to introduce advocacy back into the FAA's mission statement because we're not advocating for the industry." As we go through reauthorization, there's a number of issues that would, again, from a state level, we want to make sure happen. Of course, safety is always part of reauthorization, and a big part of that, as is, in examples like the modernization of the airspace and ADSP, things like that are really important. But we have new now coming is advanced mobility or advanced air mobility, and the challenges. In fact, Rick Larson, who's the ranking Democrat from on transportation and infrastructure, has said that advanced air mobility will be its own separate title in the reauthorization. And of course, that deals with electrification of airports, air traffic management certification, and all those things that we know well. And workforce issues are significant. And again, we heard it at DIA. It's absolutely significant within the FAA and is leading to a number of issues. I had the opportunity in February to go to the General Aviation Manufacturer Association board meeting. And their also their release of the industry production for the year. And in that in those meetings, I also had an opportunity with Chris Brown, who's the director of the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. He and I did a joint session on workforce development, and I talked about it obviously from my experience at a junior high level and how we bring young people in. He talked about it, how do we get teachers engaged. But it was interesting that was a 20-minute session that ended up going an hour because workforce development was a huge issue for the industry. Well, we see it as it carries across with the FAA. We also met separately with a number of 7 of Billy Nolan's lieutenants, of which 6 had acting in their title, and they talked pretty passionately about the problem the FAA is having in finding people. The remote work at home issue is a big one. They can't get people to come into the office. So one of the things that we're seeing is aircraft registration is being done by a couple people from their homes. And it has been as much as 190 days before you get an aircraft registered. Pete Bunce and the Gamma folks and the Gamma manufacturers will all talk about the delays in certification that are significant because there are not enough inspectors and not enough FAA officials. Bill will talk passionately about that shortage. So workforce development is a big issue within the FAA. We need leadership there that's going to carry that across. So I'll get off my soapbox, but finding a new permanent FAA administrator and taking some of these good folks and getting rid of their acting titles is going to be something that's really, really important to us as we go forward. So, and then I'd like to finish on, I've talked about this in the last 2 meetings, but now I get to deliver the results of the scholarship program that Wings over the Rockies has put together through the Captain Jeppesen Foundation. As I talked about in our last meeting, we opened up the scholarship applications in February. 86 young people applied. These are young people ages 15 to 18 applied for flying scholarships. 49 were interviewed and 23 were awarded $12,000 scholarships to go get their private pilot's license. So that's a great program. We have 23 people that soon be taken to the skies, and we're really excited about that. So we also got a lot of submissions and applications from people outside of the metro area here. That was one of my pleas to you 2 meetings ago, and I think that was the fact that we saw that was a result of some of your work efforts. So thank you for passing the word on that. So that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Well said. The only thing I'm going to add is, I'm not going to add very much, but on our western slope, Montrose terminal improvements are well underway. I think by the end of summer, before our next season, they will actually have 2 jet bridges in place. So they've never had jet bridges before. So the expansion is going very well and aggressively, and they made it through another season, and we're all catching our breath at Telluride because it was a heck of a season. Believe me, I'd buy a lot of donuts and breakfast burritos for my guys because they would get there at 4:30 in the morning and start snow removal. So we did okay. It did impact our business though, because thankfully we do have Montrose for alternate, but it did impact us. We're about 40% below where we were last year this time, which was a record last year, obviously. So it's certainly in spite of everything and whatever equipment and great people, you have to bow to Mother Nature at times. So. But we're optimistic about the summer. So with that, let's go to the next item. I think we got some people here want some comments. Jason, you usually always have something to say. Okay. I think we're going to talk a little bit. Kelly's here. We'll probably get to your point on the legislative. Anybody else? Okay. Well, let's go to the director's report. David.
Thanks. Just a couple of things, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. As always, the illustrious Bill Payne is here. I know he's going to give us a little bit of an update later on how our project is going up at Jason's airport, but met a pretty big milestone here at the end of March, and I know he'll talk about that. But what I really wanted to focus on was I shared in your packet a draft letter that Jason and Bill and I put together on behalf of the congressional delegation to the US DOT and FAA about our project, offering congressional support of our project. It looks like for now, we're going to start with our 2 senators to get that letter off. Hopefully that'll happen next week. But I'll send you all a final copy of that. But with the things going on at FAA relative to our project, the timing of that letter coming from our senators to Secretary Buttigieg and Acting Administrator Nolan will be very timely. So if you have any feedback on that letter, let us know. It hasn't gone yet, but I think that'll be a good thing for us to do. Just really quickly, I know Mark talked a little bit on FAA reauthorization from a NASAO perspective. On March 31st, I had an opportunity to join the NASAO legislative team via Zoom and provide a direct briefing to the professional staff of the House T&I committee chaired by Sam Graves to talk about NASAO's priority for reauthorization. I think the one that's really surprising is one of the things that we had proffered from the NASAO standpoint that echoes that of AAAE as well is additional AIP funding. And right now with some congressional folks, that doesn't sit real well. They're like, well, wait a minute, between CARES and ARPA and Bill and all these other programs, you all have gotten a ton of money. Well, I think in a lot of states, it's real similar to Colorado, the vast majority of that went to the commercial service airports. And general aviation airports are getting busy, just as like the commercial service airports are. And as we know, the $150,000 of non-primary entitlement doesn't go very well. You've all seen the awesome analysis that Todd did saying, hey, look, if you did something staggered like you do on primary entitlements for the non-primary folks, what would that look like? Interestingly enough, it works out to be about a $450 million increase to AIP, hence the ask for $4 billion, which interestingly enough was supported by by Sam Graves earlier this week, which is interesting to see that. So I think we're really happy about that. The one thing that has come out is that Rick Larson, the ranking member on that committee, and Senator Representative Graves are pretty tight actually, and they see pretty eye to eye, and there really seems to be a lot of bipartisan energy so far on reauthorization. So we'll see how that goes. I know both of those, both the Senate and the House hope to have something released in the next month to 6 weeks for us to digest. But anyway, it's kind of cool to get to do that. So we'll stay tuned.
It's very
on that.
encouraging.
Yeah, it's really great. And then the last thing I'll talk about, Mr. Chair, is our alternatively powered aircraft airport infrastructure study. I got to come up with something that's got an acronym. I don't know what we held our initial kickoff meeting with the team from NREL that'll be doing that. We did that at the end of March. To start, we're starting to do some initial data collection, both on our side from the airport perspective and NREL on some other things. So one of the things we're doing is standing up a study committee that will have some industry representatives to help us guide that study. So we've reached out to a number of folks from Colorado Energy Office to aircraft manufacturers to the FAA. John Bauer's office has agreed to participate. So this is really cool. I was hoping to get a CAB member on, and I don't mean to put Daniel on the spot, but thank you for stepping up to volunteer to be our representative from the CAB on that committee. So that'll be good. Appreciate that. Then what'll happen is probably the next month or two as we get going with this, you'll start to see a monthly report, both with my director's report on the off months and similar to what you get with Bill every month, something on how that report's going. So, or that study's going. So we're excited to finally, after a 15-month procurement, be underway with that. Longest procurement in my 32 years of doing procurement. So between two agencies,
Yeah,
government
two big
agencies of all
agencies.
things. So anyway, but
Well, what's funny is you've done lots of agreements with the FAA in very short periods of time. So this is rather unusual.
boils down to this, the state does not like to prepay for work.
Right.
is
Right.
And that's prepaid work
Yeah.
with DOE. So anyway, we got that figured
right.
out, but that's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Let's do our financial update. Bryce, let's open up that dashboard.
All right, thank
Talk
you, Mr.
about
Chair.
finance.
So the first dashboard here is our monthly revenue slide. March revenue came in at 4.76 million, bringing year-to-date for FY '23 up to 46.9 million. That already sets a new yearly record for revenue, and we've got 3 months to go. So the revenue we set last year, we have already surpassed this year. Again, all the stuff we've talked about, Denver fuel flow being almost as high as it was back in 2019, except this time, instead of oil being at $40 a barrel, it's anywhere from 75 to 120, depending on the month it's been. So that's the big uptick in revenue there. But with it being the final quarter of the year now, we are adjusting our revenue forecast down from 65 to 63. The only adjustment really kind of within that driving that is we did have a month and a bit period where oil was below 80, and that wasn't foreseen by EIA forecasts. So it's just a slight decrease downwards, but as you can see, still setting records all over the place. Next slide. Our cash balance ended May at 23.8 million. It's about a 1.3 million increase from the 22.5 in February that we finished at. That was expected, just driven by the increased revenue from February to March. More revenue, lower disbursements the month before kind of comes out to that total. So into April, we're forecasting to be in the 24.8 million range as we continue to see strong revenue numbers. Our tax expenditures by month continue to follow the normal trends. Nothing out of the note here. They equaled 3 million in March, 2.75 of which was sales tax, 190,000 for Avjet excise, and then 10,000 for Avgas excise. Like I said, following the trends, nothing out of the ordinary here. Our contingency slide, as you can see, our projected year-end cash balance is well above our line needed for contingency program. As we start looking out towards 2024, you see that we are certainly going to have lots of room to enhance our CDAG program or some funding allocations within that. So things remain healthy. Again, just a long-term reminder, our worst case forecast that we plug into these to make sure we have things covered is $40 a barrel and 35 million gallons at Denver. As of printing of this, we were basically double that price of fuel, and Denver was popping out 40 million gallons, another 15% on top of that. So we are comfortably well ahead of those. Again, I always once in a while highlight, we never plan for a COVID type event because that would be terrible budgeting and we would have just an unlimited amount of cash to be able to do what we do. But when something like that happens, as you saw back in 2020, we get with you guys and we quickly adjust to something like that and came through that healthy. So the contingency balance is working as it's intended. Our admin expenses for the year, currently on forecast. We finished at 765,000 was our budget. we are forecasting to finish about 745,000. And that would have us at 1.6% of FY22 revenue, well below the 5% cap. And then looking ahead to next year as well, I think our forecast is actually about 1.3% for admin costs in FY24 once we get to that. So we continue to be lean and not coming anywhere close to that 5% cap.
I would like to point out, you're probably not close enough. There actually are bars for those other months. You can barely
Those are
see
very
them on
light.
that projector.
Oh, I see.
So they're up there, but if you look on the one in your packet, but we did spend
Gotcha.
money before. Yeah.
From a fuel flow perspective, flowage at Denver in March was 44.4 million gallons. That was up 31% from February, 34 million in February, and up 14% from March of 22. They were close to the forecast of 45.1 million, which deviated significantly, as you can see on the chart there, from historical numbers. I mentioned that in the last update, I didn't think it was going to get that high based on that. Happy to say I was wrong. It did. And then as you look forward here for April, the forecast is 40.9 million gallons, which would be a decrease over March. From a trend line, it's somewhat significant. And if we do hit that, that would be a new April record as well as the March record we just hit for fuel flow at Denver.
A quick question for you. So on that dip there this year, was that expected from your standpoint?
Which dip are you referring
So-
to the
so,
April?
In April of 23, how it kind
Yep.
of dropped significantly.
So if you look, and again, the reason we took 2020 and 2021 out of here is because COVID years don't have any data that's really worth looking at on here. Not just because they were bad, but from a trend line perspective, there was no rhyme or reason to how they were going. Historically, if you look there, March has gone up a little bit. 2019, April went up from that. 2022, it went down a little bit. If we look back farther, typically there is a drop April from March.
Okay.
So I would say that is expected and likely, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, so I just got some information that I think is related to that drop, and so I'm hopeful that it'll be actually up a little bit more than you anticipate. Suncor, that whole outage that they had at the refinery, we were trying to watch for that as an airport, trying to figure out what is that going to do to us? How are we going to plan for any impact? But the airlines actually, as part of that effort, were ferrying in fuel. So that would have reduced the amount that they had to buy at Denver. And it just protected us from running out of our reserves on fuel. So I'm kind of
That makes
anxious to
sense.
see how it impacts going forward, but I kind of expect it'll be a little bit.
It should be back
Better.
online though, wasn't it
It
in
is.
March?
Yep. So we're out of the woods, and I think airlines will be buying from Denver again.
Awesome. No, that's good. But I mean, even these fuel flow numbers, despite of that, are through the roof. And, as we start looking forward here and looking at May, June, July numbers, when we start hitting peaks, I mean, if that's our starting point from a fuel flow perspective and oil's back up in the last couple of weeks here as well, we're going to be looking at even larger revenue numbers than we have this year, as long as this continues. So definitely good information coming out of Denver. And as we saw in the presentation earlier with the 100 million passengers in the early 2030s as the forecast, these
Wow.
probably aren't going down anytime soon.
That was amazing. Yeah.
And the final slide here is a new one for you all. It's a cash balance allocation. So what we've done here, we know our cash balance is getting high. We wanted to break out and kind of show you how that is allocated. So the biggest part of the allocation, as you can see, is committed CDAG grant money. And so there's two different CDAG parts on here. The yellow one is what we forecast we're still going to spend here in FY23. Then the big blue one on the right is all the commitments we have with our grant programs. Once we go through the approvals today, start contracting that. So that's all the ones that we have talked about or are going to talk about shortly. The other big numbers in there are, as you can see, FY24 stuff, as we talk about all of our statewide initiatives next fiscal year, admin building. And then that orange slice of the pie there is basically our unencumbered cash, which is only about 3.4 million. Now, with our grant programs planned for this fiscal year and next fiscal year, as we start looking at statewide initiatives and stuff, that unencumbered balance is going to grow not insignificantly every month, but that's what's going to fund when I tell Todd and the team and get your guys' approval in August. Hey, this is what we're looking at for a 2024 CDAG program. And that'll whittle that unencumbered balance down as we get approval, contract those specifically. So this is just another way to show you that we're not sitting on a ton of cash that is unencumbered. On the flip side, we're not in the hole that if things go sideways here, we're out of cash. We have enough on hand to do everything we're doing through June of next year. And then that's just going to build up what we add to our CDOT program once we hit January next year, start planning for it in August. So definitely a healthy look at our cash balance, a different way to do this. So we've talked lots about using this final slide to show a bunch of different things. If there's everything you want me to focus on or highlight on here, happy to do so. And I'll start sprinkling this in with that. You know, we do surplus on here, all sorts of ideas to use this, but we just wanted to kind of show you that, yeah, we know the cash balance is growing. It's not a bad thing. This is what it's looking like. And again, showing you kind of some of the
I
runway that
think
we
it's a
have
great
as
way to
well.
break it down. So, yeah. Good. Any questions?
Question I didn't know the answer to, and I don't remember it. Where's that cash sit?
That cash right now is it's Fund 160, which is basically our bank account.
We manage that cash?
Say again?
The state manage that cash?
No.
or-
Yes.
It sits in our account right now. Yes, the state moves the money in and out. When we submit a payment through CDOT, it clears SAP and they pull it right from our account. Revenue comes in at the end of the month from DOR. It goes into that account. So it's something that they have to have our
I know your
approval.
next
to-
question.
Yeah, okay, good. Go ahead.
Do we invest that money in anything?
We do not
Something-
invest that money in anything. We do collect interest on that from the state. Right now, we're making about $50,000 in interest every month.
I was gonna say that, you know, the numbers that large, that becomes, especially at what's
That's
happening
nice.
right now. I guess I'm really asking, how active are we in managing that cash, or how active can we be in managing that cash?
We
'Cause-
don't
'cause it
take
could
an
be-
active role in managing it per se, other than knowing where it's going, where it's allocated. And then, like I said, with it sitting there, yeah, I track, the interest, and that
Okay.
pops into our revenue number. And yeah, it's not an insignificant amount right now. I can say as a division, we keep more from interest every year than we do from excise tax on avgas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By a
Well,
significant
and I think
amount.
it's also an interesting point is, when you're a Fortune, 100 CEO like Mark is, that there are a lot of limitations on public money.
Oh,
for
certainly,
what you
I'm
can
sure.
do,
it is.
so, yeah. Good. Okay.
But I still
any
have
other
to ask the
questions?
question. where's
Yeah,
the-
no, that's great.
Where's
Great
the
question.
cash?
Well, it's great to know that. I didn't realize that we were making that kind of interest revenue. So
Yeah, no,
that's
it
fantastic.
adds up. And then as a reminder,
Good.
we took 7 million out of the 160 fund. I can't remember when it was here, it was September or something last year, and put that into SIB. So airports can use that, earn interest on that. And that's a way to not keep it in this account and be able to manage that, get that out better, I guess, with the airports. So that's certainly a lever we have available to us as well.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to 8.2, the publication budget increase, Bryce. You mismanaged it that much.
No.
You have to come back to us, huh?
Just trying to keep Sean likes to spend money. What can I say? No, the purpose of this here is we are recommending a motion to approve an increase of our publications budget for FY 23 by 40,000 to a total of 140,000. Due to the drastic increase in prices, primarily from our printing services, the adjustment is needed. Things came in significantly higher for charts and directories, aerial photography. Sean, what's the other one I'm missing? Charts, directories, split things. So those costs just came in a lot high, and then we were down to one vendor when it came to charts and stuff like that. Sean is already working with them to try to get costs down next year, give them more runway to knock those down. Next year, we do have a budget of 125,000 already approved by you guys back in January. So we have some additional plan for that already. So we are asking for an action item to increase the budget for this fiscal year by 40,000, just to fund that cost center through the end of the year.
Okay, motion? So moved. Seconded? Any discussion? I will say it's well worth it. The publications are fantastic. Great job. So,
Thank you,
Sure, to the
Chair
team.
and Board.
okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, there you go. And then finally, the last one, Caitlin talked to us about a intern request.
And this one actually isn't an intern request, it's more of an administrative request.
Okay,
The supplemental fund you guys approved at the CAB meeting in August for the administrative amendments for those additional federal funds or any increase in state projects. Leadville got some additional money for their taxi lane project. They're building new taxi lanes for some hangar development, which they really don't have at all currently. And they got a little bit of 10,000 extra dollars from the FAA. So we are going to match that using this new supplemental fund. So no action needed by you guys, more of an informational piece, but we promised you we would keep you abreast of the funding, and this is what we are doing.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good. All right, well, let's get into the big one, our Colorado Discretionary Aviation Grant Federal Match Grant hearing. Want to review that there, Todd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I am happy to announce, if I can get that shut off. Happy to announce that this is the second round of our 2023 CDAG program. So back in January, you guys awarded 17 grants out the door, accounting for about $9.5 million. And so this is the second round for our federal match grants. So this round accounts for 35 additional applications for match on federal funds, totaling just over $4 million. So as you can see, we have a list of all 35 of these on there. We'll kind of go through these slides just to kind of show them to you. And then the last one kind of sums it up for us nicely. And again, there are copies in front of you as well, so you can go through those. But again, this was a huge program, one of our largest ever. And part of that accounts for, historically, we've matched the AIP program at half the local match component, up to 250,000 per airport per year. But in addition to that, Dave talked about the extra bill money coming into this state as well. So this was kind of the first year we saw airports use a pretty good chunk of that money. So airports this year are using $21 million of those bill allocations this year. And because those were somewhat of an unknown, we kind of told airports that we will help you match that, and we won't put a cap on it this time as well. So we are matching those additional bill funds too at half that local match component. So so the whole program in total again is 35 applications, totaling just over $4 million at $4,019,683. And that helps leverage over $100 million of federal funding, which is it's the first time I've seen that number go above 100 million. And then kind of add in the local component there, it would account for $112 million worth of projects. And then if you this is just the fun piece of it, when you add in the state and the local program we approved back in January, the total projects is over $123 million. So pretty cool in that aspect. Compared to last year, we were right at that $100 million level. So, so today, again, we're looking for approval of this second round for this federal match program. I will say we'll have to break it down a little bit because we do have a couple of airports that our board members are a part of as well. And so for the first approval, I would look for approval I'll actually hand this to Dave because we actually talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, sure. So this one's a little complicated, Mr. Chair. We would ask for the board's approval of all of the 2023 federal grant CDAG grants as presented, with the exception of Burlington and Telluride, and request separate votes on those with the appropriate abstentions. Following that, you can all vote on the resolution that would officially approve all of them.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about any of the 35. I will do my best to answer them.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, is there a better way to do this, Dave, if we vote on the total with the advance abstaining with Telluride and Burlington? And then do those separate?
The dollar amount.
We don't need the dollar amount of that, right? Okay. All right, so I'll do looking for a motion for to approve 35 federal grants totaling $4,019,683.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And is this where I can say Telluride abstains from their grant and Burlington, or we'll do that as separate vote?
We'll do those as separate.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
All right, there you go. Got your
So
grants.
for Burlington, it is an airfield generator, and the grant request from Burlington totals $16,888. So looking approval for that grant as well.
Okay.
separately.
Motion for approved Burlington, seconded? Discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Anybody opposed? All right, let's do the big Telluride one.
Mr. Chair, real quickly.
Oh, wait, and
Daniel
Daniel did. say-
I'm.
Yeah, yes, I do. Sorry for the record.
Got it.
Let's do Telluride.
Keep you all.
Right.
Jeez. Okay,
All right, and
this is even bigger dollars.
Oh, yes, this one's big. So for the second one, we are looking for separately here is for the Telluride Airport to do an ALP. And this accounts for $25,000 of matching state funds.
Okay. Looking for a motion? Seconded?
I'll second.
Seconded by Steve. And discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
One abstention, that would be me for the record. Telluride. And anyone opposed? Okay. There
Thank
go.
you very much.
Got
And
your
now the
35
much
grants.
easier part. So for
Okay.
this one, I am looking for approval of resolution 2023-03, approving all 35 of these grants. And now that the abstentions have been done, that is where we're looking for approval of the resolution for the full amount of state funding for federal match of $4,019,683.
Okay, motion,
So moved.
seconded? All right, discussion? Nice work, Todd. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, there's your resolution, 2023-03.
Thank you very much. And sorry for that being a little cluttered. It's just a matter of we have to make sure we are following all the conflict of interest rules. So thank you again for breaking those out for us.
Yeah, no problem. And then finally, the last item is the administrative supplemental fund, Todd.
Thank you very much again. So what this is, and Caitlin talked a little bit about it for the Leadville grant. So this administrative supplemental fund you guys approved back at our August meeting, which allowed us as a staff to approve amendment requests as they came into us. We had a couple things come up where airports would call us and say, hey, we're mid-project. We have this thing going on. We need a little bit more money. And prior to that fund being set up, we'd have to say, well, we as a staff approve, we like it, but we'll recommend it to the board. But it would have to wait until that actual approval from you guys to be able to do that. But with this administrative fund, you gave us access to a chunk of money to administratively approve some of those. So we could give airports the assurance that, yes, you can move forward with that project because we do support it as a staff for that increased funding. So that was back in August, you approved $410,000 into that fund at that point. Since then, we've had 3 requests come in, one for Walden for their fence, one for the Colorado Air and Spaceport for a little bit additional project funding, and then Leadville for their taxi lane development. And today I'm coming to you again for an increase to that fund by $482,867, which is the number below that $14 million Bryce talked about as our limit for our 2023 program. So with our state and locals plus these federal match grants you just approved, that came to just over 13.5 million. And I'm requesting to remove that remaining, $482,000 into this aviation, the supplemental fund, so we can continue approving those amendments as they come up. And Dave and I have had this conversation is how high should that fund get? And we are watching it very close. And so if this was approved, it would bring it right up to just under $860,000, which doesn't worry me too much at this point because that is less than 10% of the $14 million grants we're giving out this year too. So this does give us the ability to say yes to some of those, but it's definitely not a guarantee that an airport will ask us and we'll approve it. I mean, they are on a case-by-case basis and that's how we'll handle it. And just like Caitlin did today, we will update you at the next meeting when we do approve one. So, today I am looking for approval to move the remaining $482,867 into the aviation, I have to get the term right, administrative supplemental fund.
Okay, looking for a motion. Okay, seconded? Okay, discussion, any questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
All right, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say this has been a really helpful tool for staff, especially with the volatility and construction prices right now, allowing
Yeah,
us
I
to
like
keep folks, projects on track and do all of that. We'll have a discussion in August about maybe indexing that somehow to our grant program going forward so that it's just not a random number that we tell you we think works okay. But we'll talk more about that in August, but it's been a great tool. And I think it's allowing airports to move forward. I would emphasize that does not contemplate any change of scope. It's got to be for the original scope. We're not approving those unless they come to you.
It's not changed from,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next item, professional development. I would say this is an action item. Director Elaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Standard April agenda item for the next fiscal year. You all have to approve under CDOT procedural directives, our professional development out-of-state travel plan. That incorporates all of the costs associated with planned trips outside of the state of Colorado, including things like professional development opportunities and participation of staff and the chair in the NASEO annual convention each September. This year, we expanded it a little bit based on our outstanding financial performance and tried to give everyone on the team an opportunity to participate in at least one professional development opportunity in FY24. That's not been something we've done up to this point. So we have included that in there. And then I would also note, and just a reminder, that it does not include in-state travel, attendance at any of the aviation airport outreach events, or routine PCI inspections or anything like that. All of that in-state travel comes out of those respective budgets. So for this year, we are respectfully requesting approval of FY24 professional development plan totaling $38,750. That is an increase of $12,250 from last year, again, to provide some additional opportunities, and things like airfare and hotels are all starting to sneak up a little bit in price as well. So that would be our request, Mr. Chair, $38,750 for FY24.
Okay, looking for a motion. Seconded?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, you got your out-of-state travel.
Thank you. We appreciate that. It really, I think, is a great opportunity. You all have incorporated that in the strategic plan. Staff development was something that was included in that, and that allows us to do that. So we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Very good. Okay, let's go on to item number 11 on program updates. Hetty, education and outreach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. In the short 3.5 months of 2023, we have attended 11 events. We have some slides up here. Some of the events that we hosted are planes and pilots of the Colorado Airport Directory and Aeronautical Chart, and that was great. It was kind of with, oh shoot. Anyways, an incredible man. He was a general in the Air Force. General Titus, there we go. He flew pretty much all of the Century Series aircraft, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Falcon Aero Lab had a really cool event. They had 6 groundbreaking or sky-shattering female pilots, including Connie Engel, who was the first female to graduate jet training, Air Force jet training in 1977. Nicole Malachowski, she was the first Thunderbird pilot, female Thunderbird pilot, pretty cool. Nicole Jensen is in there as well. And they also had about 18 female students from Falcon Aero Lab attend that, and they had a pretty cool write-up with the Gazette newspaper. And the Emily Warner and Women Airline Pilots Day proclamation, both Trimby and I went to that. It was pretty incredible. It also coincided with International Women's Day, which you can see on the second picture there. And I coincidentally wore red that day, not knowing that that was kind of the color of that day. So that's pretty cool. We also have partnered with the Denver School of Science and Technology, as well as the Denver Center for Equity and Excellence in Aviation for their industry nights. And we actually did 2 of those this year, which is pretty cool. We have about 7 more events coming up. So like kind of give you a contrast of last year, we had 12 events that we attended or supported, and we've kind of already surpassed that. So it's pretty cool. The 2023 Aviation Education Grant application window closes on May 1st, so that's about a week and a half away. We have 2 applications that have been submitted by Legacy High School Aeronautics Program, as well as District 11 Career and Technical Education Pathways Program. Dave and I have actually cold called a lot of people, and we've received intent to apply from about 8 more organizations, including about 4 school districts, some of the BOSI's down south, which is pretty incredible since they need the money. We also sent out a reminder email blast to all of our subscribers, as well as the Aerospace Frontiers Education Committee. So hopefully, and this is kind of what happened last year too, like the last week, we had about 8 applications come in. So I'm hoping that that is the same for this year.
Excellent. I'd also like to recognize that our own Representative Trimby was also at the event as well, right?
Yeah, of
That's
the,
great. Yep.
yes,
Wednesday, yeah.
yes, as you can see in the picture.
There's her picture.
Yeah.
Where's her red? Yeah. Excellent. Very good, Hetty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Intern update, Melanie. Hi.
Hi. So some events that I've been to since the last board meeting have been the Pilots and Planes event, along with Hetty. Also Aerospace Day at the Capitol. We had a tour of Rocky Mountain Metro Airport. And I went to the Kappa Asphalt and Airports meeting, and those were all in March. And then most recently this week, I got to go on a 5010 and PCI inspection for Southeast Colorado, and it was really cool to see some of the smaller airports.
Did you see anything interesting on any of the runways?
Now that you mention it. We saw 3 interesting things. On the
Okay.
runways. Yeah, one including being a rattlesnake.
That's amazing.
That's a
No-
pretty
no
common
airplanes,
occurrence
no.
out east.
just wild animals and remnants of animals.
Wow. Well, good. Well, good.
Oh yeah, so those were the events, and then moving on to projects. I've been working on helping mail out the new 2023 charts and directories. I did some forecasting for excise tax for the airports, and as well as sales tax forecast for Colorado Springs Airport. I created a summary sheet detailing the federal funding for COVID relief funds for the airports in Colorado. And I believe that was sent out to the board. And then most notably on the screen here is the aircraft accident and incident response guide, which kind of details what to do if an aircraft has an accident or incident at an airport. And operations people or anyone who works on the airport can use this as a guide to how they respond.
Have you sent this to airports? I'd like to have this.
Not yet,
So-
but
I really like that handy guide. It's pretty
I
cool.
want one too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have got one right here.
Oh, excellent.
So, and I've got some in my car.
Okay,
So speak with me afterwards. I can
thank you.
try to get you one, but here, I'll pass it along.
Okay.
It's in a
I'm
plastic.
saying I want like a case of them, but yeah,
case.
we need to
Yeah, yeah.
get that going with some of our. That's phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, this is this is beyond anything I had in mind, because, you know, we had a incident the other couple of weeks ago, Bonanza. And even, you know, when our people are just kind of so focused on the FBO activities or what have you, then when something happens, you know, having a nice card like that would be phenomenal. So.
Yeah, I
very
mean,
nice.
yeah, it's definitely useful because
Good.
when something happens suddenly,
Yep.
you're kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
in panic mode.
Well, the other
so-
thing too that I found is, the phone numbers have changed, or, you know, their updates or the ops center or what have you, and that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
When your adrenaline's going and you're
So some
trying to
back,
get the airplane.
What's the deal with you guys in Bonanzas at your airport?
I know.
so some background of this project. So it was just like a random Wednesday,
Very
working
nice.
in the office. I get a cold call from the Brush airport manager. It's like, hey, I just got a phone call. I have an aircraft upside down on my runway. What do I do? And I was like, let me make a few calls. I will get you everything you need. And so called him back and did that. And so we had Melanie do a whole bunch of research on what should be included,
Yeah.
included our whole staff on this. And the part she actually didn't talk about was this was actually reviewed by an NTSB investigator as well that happened to be in town at Centennial Airport.
Yeah.
And so we got it in front of her as well and said, is this information what you would want your airports to have? And so a lot of work and Melanie put a ton of work into this.
So you're gonna distribute these, Melanie? Good.
Yeah,
All the airports,
yeah,
fantastic.
we've got
And
100.
especially those that don't have airport management or what have you. Wow, you know, yeah. Doesn't happen. I mean, I know Jason still gets confused, but he would love to have something like that, so. But, okay, any questions? Any other questions? Nice work, Melanie. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the remote tower.
Okay, so I think most of you know that that our remote tower project is being considered right now by the FAA, whether we're going to continue or not. On the first of the month, we did a demonstration. Sea Ridge came in and installed 4K cameras to replace the 1080p HD cameras. That demonstration was very successful. That proved that we could meet the visual requirements in the operational visual requirements document. The interesting part about this is that our system at Fort Collins was installed and tested in 2018. The OVRs came out after that. So what's happening is they're playing catch up. Now, I will tell you that I had discussions this morning with the FAA as to where we're going. There's going to be a meeting on the 27th, which I formally requested that I be involved. And I got the response today saying, no, we're not going to let you be involved. And I said, you know, it is impressive to see how little $8.8 million will buy you today.
Yeah.
And so that's, but I'm hopeful, based on some of the conversations I've had with air traffic, air safety, that the program is going to be able to continue. Now, Sea Ridge provided a letter to the contracting officer requesting that the stop work order be lifted. I'm cautiously optimistic that that's going to happen, provided Sea Ridge can provide good faith effort to get the documentation that's required for the system design approval, which has to go to Tech Ops. So that is all going to come to a head, I think, on the 27th of this month, next week. Now we'll see how that works out. As I said, I'm cautiously optimistic that our program will be able to proceed. It's now going to be up to Sea Ridge and the FAA. Right now, the FAA is under a fairly good amount of scrutiny because of what happened at Leesburg. And I spoke, friends of mine, Air Force folks that I know had Leesburg folk get in touch with me as the last program standing, civilian program standing in the U.S. There's a real interest in having us continue. I still believe that the configuration that we have is the best. That's what's going to end up being the final configuration that's going to be used for these remote tower projects. And to speak what Mark was talking about leadership at the FAA, it's a ship without a rudder. Billy Nolan, I just found out this morning, is taking a job. So Billy will be leaving before too long. His backup is Brad Mims, nice guy. Brad's a nice guy, but he's a nice guy. And so I think we're in a unique position here. As I said, the remote tower project in the United States is in somewhat of a pickle when Romania deploys a remote tower, which they just did.
Wow.
I mean, and that is pretty amazing how that works. So anyway, that's my report. I'm hoping to be able to get some further information later today because I left messages for various people at the FAA saying, give me a call, please. And I suspect I didn't say it quite like that, but they understand I'm interested in talking to them. So I expect
Well, I expect with your sunshiny personality, they'll definitely call you.
well, it's a kinder, gentler bill.
Yes.
That's me. So
It's nice
anyway.
to see that you've softened up, so.
well, it's I'll tell you what, this has been a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And it is to wax philosophical, as I'm fond of doing, is we in the United States are losing our preeminence in the aviation field, not just in remote towers, but in a lot of other areas. All you have to do is look around the world. So,
It's very sad.
yeah. Anyway, that's
But
it.
hopefully it's temporary.
Well, I think it will be, but
Yeah. Well, good.
hope reigns eternal.
Any questions? Okay, well, thank you, Bill, for the update, and I appreciate your persistence. The Finnish word for that is called sisu. So very nice. The next item is an action item, and it's appointment of a aeronautical board member to the Aviation State Infrastructure Bank Loan Committee. Dave, do you want to give a little bit of a background on that, and I'll interject a appointment?
Yeah, this is great. So at its regular meeting tomorrow, the Transportation Commission is expected to formally adopt updated rules for CDOT's State Infrastructure Bank Loan Program. And that will be concurrent with CDOT's internal finalization of one of our procedural directives that aligns and implements those new rules. Those documents are done, they're ready to go. They're just waiting for a vote tomorrow. Those rules are being updated because of a division initiated process improvement that would eliminate the TC from approval of aviation SIB loans, bring that back to all of you since you're both type 1 boards and have authority over your respective programs. That got great feedback from TC and they're willing to abdicate that. That will eliminate that current final TC approval step that adds time and no value to our aviation SIB process. So we're very happy that they've embraced that. So part of that process will change involves appointing a CAB member in lieu of a TC member to the SIB loan committee for aviation loans. And this part of the rule did not change, but for all SIB loans, there's a committee that takes a look at the financial due diligence. It consists of myself for aviation loans, the CFO for CDOT, the SIB manager for CDOT, and then historically it's been somebody appointed to be on that committee by the TC.
Okay.
We need somebody from the board now. For
Well,
that
I'd
aviation.
like to nominate someone with has tremendous strength in business and finance, and that would be Mark Van Tine. If anybody else would like to volunteer, we can vote or nominate or anyone else. Otherwise, looking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay, seconded?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Mark, whether you like it or not. All those in favor, say aye.
Can I, discussion
All,
is just,
yeah, you can vote for yourself. So,
wait, so did we vote already?
no, we're going to.
Discussion? Because what I heard you
Discussion.
talking about earlier
Yeah.
on this topic, Mark was kind of concerned about the time involved.
Yeah, I think it's about,
Okay, good.
yeah, I think it's probably about 20 hours a week for him, so. No, yeah, we did have a advanced conversation, so I think he's comfortable with this nomination, right? Okay. Yes.
$50 a meeting.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Any other comments?
Thank you. I'll let y'all know how it goes tomorrow. I'll be back down here for the TC meeting and I'll be ready to testify if I need to.
Okay, let's go ahead and formally vote. I got the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, Thank you. You're the man. Thank you. All right. Very good. And then the next item, legislative issues. Let's talk about, some action lately. Dave and I'm sure Kelly, you probably have some things you'd like to fill us in on.
I'll start off real quick, if I
Okay.
might, Mr. Chair, just a couple things of note. Couple bills that have passed and have been signed by the governor. House Bill 23-1156 was the Airport Authority Act modernization that you all supported. That's been passed into law. The other one that passed second year was the charm. Senate Bill 23-095 makes it a felony to knowingly aim a laser device at an aircraft. You all supported that. Both of those have been signed by the governor. A couple of other ones still in play on aviation, both surrounding decarbonization and sustainable aviation, and I'll let Kelly talk a little bit about it. First one that was introduced was House Bill 1272. It was a broader decarbonization bill that included some tax incentive concepts for sustainable aviation fuel production. Those were more defined in House Bill 23-1289, which was introduced last week. And I'll let Kelly talk about that. That was the bill that had two pieces, one to incentivize airports and businesses buying electric ground support equipment, and then also had some tax incentives for the production, research, development, et cetera, of sustainable aviation fuel. House Bill 1289 had its hearing in House Finance a couple days ago, and 9-2 vote, bipartisan vote, passed out of that committee. Pretty good support. Now it's on the House Appropriations. Don't know when that will be. Mr. Mampa testified on behalf of the Telluride Airport. I was not able to secure a blessing at the governor's office for him to testify on the cab. They like us to coordinate with the governor's office before they see one of their appointees in front of a committee testifying. They want to at least know what's going on. So I've reached out to the governor's office to hopefully check that box so that if he so chooses, Mr. Mampa can testify in front of House Appropriations on behalf of the cab. So we'll work on that. It seems like that shouldn't be an issue to make sure we keep everybody happy. So that's that from my perspective. I know Kelly Sloan, 1289 is Cava's bill. So yeah, you probably have more detail than I do.
Yeah, a little bit. And first of all, just came back to the laser strike bill. Just want to thank Trimby as well for her stellar testimony, which helped get that over the line. So thanks for everybody that supported that. That's a pretty good effort, and we got a lot of support of that. I think we had only 5 no votes, so that's pretty good in this environment. For the sustainability bill, so yeah, as most of you know, we started stakeholdering this about 8 months ago. And there are 2 parts to our bill. The first part, like you said, is a tax credit towards the purchase of electric ground support equipment. Second part's an investment tax credit, which we patterned after the advanced industry investment tax credit, which goes to any equity investor investing in a business doing R&D or production of, we try to make it any alternative fuel, whether it's SAF, electric power plants, hydrogen. And we also put in alternatives to low lead, to leaded avgas, since we know that's going to be a major fight coming up. Well, kind of in the middle of it. We have expected some kind of legislation this year to perhaps outlaw leaded avgas. So that's in there as well, and the infrastructure to support the delivery of whatever these alternatives are. In the stakeholdering process, United Airlines wanted to change the structure of the tax credit towards being more of a tax credit towards the construction of an SAF production facility, with a clawback if the facility produces more than 50% SAF. So, which would take out blending facilities. Of course, no aircraft that I know of runs on 100% SAF quite yet.
Be very expensive.
It would be very, yes. I'm not going to comment on what their motives might be, but it could be that a particular company wants to build an SAF production facility in Colorado and like that paid for. So anyway, that is in the governor's larger decarbonization package, which could present some problems going forward with our bill. There has already been some questions. Well, if we already have the blender tax credit at the federal level, now we have this production tax credit in the decarbonization bill. Why do we need this one? Of course, our answer is that it's not just about SAF, it's about all the other things out well. And we're really, from CABA's standpoint, since we, with the flight schools and a lot of the private GA aircraft. We do have a lot of piston aircraft out there that are using leaded fuel. We know there's alternatives out there. I know APA is doing some great work and trying to incentivize getting some unleaded alternatives online. We think this bill would help. So we have 18 long days left in session to try and sort all this out. I know there's going to be some efforts among the House Republicans to, well, there's going to be about 50 amendments they're going to try and put onto the decarbonization bill. Most of them for shits and giggles, but some of them will be serious amendments. And one would be to strip out that section 10 if our bill goes forward. There's been a lot of talk of among some members. I think ours is structured a little bit better, for the overall aviation industry. So a lot of moving parts here. But as you heard, we did pass out of Finance Committee 9-2. We do have bipartisan sponsors. Two of my sponsors are on JBC. If we're running tax credits, I'd like to find a way to fund them. So I'd like to have people from JBC on the bill. We did have to kind of pare it down since we're not working on the governor's budget anymore. He had budgeted a certain amount of money for this before, the United plan became the preferred one. So we did have to pare it down a little bit to put a cap at $250,000 on each credit, just as kind of an introductory offer to bring that fiscal note down, and a 2-year sunset. And I think one thing that Representative Taggart is going to offer at some point, or we might try in the Senate, is to extend that sunset out a little bit, because for a major capital investment, 2 years is that's not much. We may have to do that this year just to keep the fiscal note low enough that we can, because the House and Senate each have a certain amount of money that they are allowed to play with. And there's a lot of people competing for that money, not just us. So,
well, very good, Kelly.
where we're at.
I just want to shout out to you. You earned your keep that day. I was all suited up, ready to jump on my motorcycle and get this, hey, can you testify? And it was like in an hour.
Yeah.
And,
it moved pretty
and
quick.
then unfortunately, the House stayed in session and they apologized. The chair was very gracious and he apologized to everyone, but I don't think we could get on until it was around 3:30.
Yeah, about that.
Like
Yeah.
almost 4 o'clock. So, but luckily
For this time.
our item was number one and we were able to do it, but you prepared me, you sent me the talking points, and I really appreciate you bringing me up to speed, although I didn't really explain the differences between the decarbonization bill, which is more production, and the other aspect of what the state is more of an R&D capital type of investment. So I tried to mention that they were very much complementary, but there was certainly no double dipping or anything like that. So, but very good job. So hopefully this will work.
Yeah, you bet. There is no, won't be any testimony in the Appropriations Committee.
Okay.
But we may, if it gets through the House, so our next opportunity to testify will be in the Senate.
Excellent.
So,
Okay.
I did want, really quickly, just want to mention that there was the Firehawk bill, a funding bill for the Firehawk helicopter. COP is supported. That was more a support position for the Agricultural Aviation Association, since we do fire aviation. That's going through. There was a bill to limit liability for volunteer search and rescue helicopter pilots. That ran into some snags with the Search and Rescue Association. I can't even begin to describe what that is. That's a whole legal liability thing that is so far over my head. I'm not even going to try to explain what the problem was there. But that is, they're going to be working on that over the summer. The COBA took a tangential interest in that. And there is a fuel bill out there, 280. I did check, it does aviation fuel, so we're all good there. The only other one that might be of some interest to the aeronautics community in general is 1260. It's semiconductor bill. It takes advantage of the CHIPS Act money. That would draw down $5.5 billion to the state for the establishment of a chip zone, like an enterprise zone for semiconductors. I know we use a couple of those in our aircraft. I don't know if there'd be a direct benefit to the aviation industry, but there it is. So.
Very good. Any questions? Okay, with that, looking for a motion to approve the resolution 2023-03, which is the updated resolution for for the advocacy. So, motion. Seconded? Second. Discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. That leads us to our final action item, which is the proposed calendar. We do, as a reminder, we do have this has been on the calendar that I think we talked last in January. There's just one minor change. Obviously, we have our June 21st through 23rd conference meeting, CAOA conference meeting in Colorado Springs. We're gonna have our meeting, I believe it's on the 20th. And then we have Thursday, the 22nd is well, that's the date, sorry. That's the conference. And then we have our general meeting on the 22nd. And then at 1:30 PM. And then on the August, we moved back a week. I had some conflict, but if it's okay, I've moved the August workshop staff workshop to August 22nd. And then are we doing the CAB meeting and the workshop all in one day?
There'll be separate days.
It'll
like
be
they were
so the
last year.
20th and the 22nd, 23rd probably. Oh yeah, there you go. Sorry, you have the 23rd there afterwards. So anyway, that's the only change. And if anyone has any, does anyone have any questions about that? And I apologize for the change, but I think we got a few months here notice to everyone. So, okay, looking for a motion to approve the proposed calendar through our August workshop and general meeting. So moved. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ken's thinking pretty hard. I was worried about him for a minute. but- Okay.
Juggling calendar.
Yes, juggling calendars. So, okay, with all that, we vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Good. Okay. And then we're at our last item. Any other matters or discussion? Yes. Mr. Cronenfeld,
Yes, Chair Mappa, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
All right, great. Hey, just as a follow-up to Steve's report, I just wanted to add a couple more things for CAOA. One is that we really looking forward to welcoming everybody to the spring conference this year. We've had two very successful conferences, one in Telluride and then in Grand Junction, and they really set the bar really high. So we're hoping to continue that trend at our conference in Colorado Springs this year. Also wanted to mention that we're having an airfield electrical lighting and signage training that's going to be is tentatively planned for September 12th through the 15th. So if anybody has staff that's interested in going through that training, please have them go to our website and look up that and get registered. Also, just wanted to mention we have two new CAOA scholarships we'll be awarding this year for $2,500 each, and those can go to anybody working on an aviation degree or vocational training. And for people that are interested in working at airports or in the support positions in aviation. The application deadline for that is July 31st. So if you have anybody that's interested in that, that's a great scholarship to apply for to help out with your education. We are in the process of updating our CAOA website. So if there's any suggestions from the CAB or from the State Division of Aeronautics on what we should include in content, we're open to that feedback, so let us know. That won't go online for a few more months now, but we are in the process on the backside of working on that. And then also just wanted to mention, first of all, Tony Vicari is who's helped us out a lot with our education committee on CAOA, and he does that survey every year, and we appreciate everybody's feedback on that, so we know where those needs are as far as ongoing training. Also wanted to mention the Colorado Airport Authority Act, like was talked about earlier, did pass. The governor signed that. I understand it'll go into effect in August. Although that only affects the 4 airport authorities in the state, which are Grand Junction, Telluride, Centennial Airport, and Greeley Airport, is really a needed update to that language to bring us kind of into the 21st century. So, and Representative Taggart on the Western Slope really spearheaded that, along with Angela Pally at Grand Junction and Dan Reamer as a legal advice, and then also our consultants or lobbyists, Bodish and Castle, were integral in that whole push as well. So that's my CAOA update. I also want to just really quickly touch on things going out here at Centennial. As you may or may not have heard, we've had a lot of agitated community members as of late at all of our meetings, both roundtable and board, concerned about the airport noise or the aircraft noise, the training traffic, and then also the concerns over leaded fuel. And so we are trying to kind of get in front of that a little bit, especially with the leaded fuel. We had our board sign a resolution in March saying that we were moving towards a transition from 100 low lead to 94 UL as an interim until 100 unleaded is available. And so since that resolution was passed, we have our 3 major flight schools all agreed to get supplemental type certificates for their aircraft in order to accept this fuel. Our main or our biggest FBO, Jet Centers of Colorado, has agreed to actually free up one of their fuel farm tanks and a fuel truck so that we can accept full loads of the unleaded gasoline. Their sterilization of that equipment was supposed to happen this week, as well as the first load of that fuel potentially showing up either this week or early next week. Our push was to try to get this as an alternative on the airfield before summer, and it sounds like we'll probably have a unveiling ceremony on April 3rd coming up. So as far as I know, we'll be the first airport in the state that'll offer 94 UL. And so we're really excited to be on the forefront of that. It's something that, the community is expecting now. And we anticipate later this year, there could be an EPA finding that leaded fuel is an endangerment to public health. And so we want to stay ahead of that and at least begin the transition. We will continue to sell 100 low lead until there's a product available that can replace all of or be used in all the fleet at Centennial Airport. The 94 UL is only good for about 70% of the fleet. If you have a high compression or turbocharged engine, you cannot utilize the 94 UL. So like I said, this is a bit of an interim step to moving to an unleaded future. And so we're really excited to be taking the lead on that and look forward to having some of our customers continue to use that. We had also 2 weeks ago, we sent out a flyer to 475 based tenants that have aircraft that could use this to try to encourage them to do that. And one of the things the airport is doing to incentivize this transition is paying for the supplemental type certificates for the aircraft if they're based here at Centennial Airport, helping the FBOs with the transition of the equipment. And then we're going to supplement the price of the 94 UL to make it equivalent to the market price of 100 low lead, so that you're not having to pay more in order to use this unleaded gasoline, at least for the initial time period through the end of this year and potentially into next year. We'll continue to subsidize that. So anyway, that's our update from Centennial Airport, and I'm open to any questions you might have.
Hearing none. Well, thank you, Mike. Way to do this in a very high profile, and congratulations on being the first airport in Colorado to take the lead. So very nice. Any questions? Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I do have to kind of piggyback on what Mike was talking about, going back to January when we had our confirmation hearings. Literally the first question they asked us was about noise complaints and aircraft noise and everything. And we had kind of talked a little bit with Dave about having some kind of a unified stance from the board and CDOT. And I was just kind of curious on, have you thought about that anymore? Or it just seems like this keeps snowballing and getting bigger. And I wonder if we should try to head it off.
Yeah, and I'm happy to put that in writing. We did talk about it in January. We did have a discussion about that.
Okay.
But maybe we need to memorialize that in writing.
Yeah,
so you all
maybe
have
something that we can all have to refer to, because eventually it's going to come to
It is.
For
And
comment and
yeah.
I want to make sure we're on the same
information
page.
From our staff is, and it's kind of aligns with the TC, is that most of that stuff's federally preempted, and where it's not, our division just does not get into the meat of airport operations and local airport issues. We don't have the bandwidth, the expertise. It's not our statutory charge. And it's really not appropriate for us as a state agency to take a local role. Doesn't mean we won't educate or provide data, economic impact studies and things like that. But I think for us, agnosticism is the word that we take when it comes to local issues like that until something changes and people say, well, how do I make you get involved? And I don't mean to be flip, but it's like, well, then the statute would have to change to say we want you to get involved with some of these local issues, but it's tough for us. And again, even though the team is very well versed in all 25 or so of the airports they have in the region, we just don't know all the nuance and local issues that allow us to even
I
comment.
think that's a good, I
smartly.
support that position, so.
That-
But having
that's-
airports
that's-
like.
or
having
you all
airports like
tell us, you're
Centennial
all
Airport
our
being that
bosses.
lead is a high profile and it's but also I would say that would be notice to all the rest of the airports that, because I know Rocky Mountain Metro is gonna say, well, look what Centennial did, why don't you do this? And, they have a lot of issues. So for all of us, we need to be on notice that we better get this thing going. Thanks a lot, Mike. So-
Well, and to Mike's comment, I think one of the things that we have talked about where we can help with some of these local issues is fuel farms are eligible for our division funding. And if an airport seeks to put in a UL 94 fuel farm to obviate a local issue, we're more than willing to have that discussion with them and how that fits into our CIP. So same thing with GAMI, when their 100 low lead comes out, it does not require separate infrastructure, as I understand it. But we're still willing to do anything we can to help facilitate the availability of these new unleaded fuels to the extent we can.
Very good. All right, anything else? Yes.
If you want to have a few seconds, I wanted to announce that May 30th and June 5th at afternoon, we do have the Veteran Air Force coming to visit with the Flying Legends of Victory tour. So we toured the flight. I think they have the information. But also wanted to point out that Colorado State University did get an FAA education grant really at the last minute, which is kind of interesting and unique, and with them and also an 18 college to provide UAS drone training to the conference. So the immersive program that will include 107 full scale everything, and then they'll actually get a flight named part of that, and we'll be providing some also in the region and then we're providing introductory flight for anybody that's interested in flying out from there and performing about their engagement program, including the new trailer that they're actually finally, October 6th, CDOT have one of the first ground air programs we have.
Cool. Thank you. Well, thank you, Jason. All right. Well, I think we can call this adjourned and have a great rest of your spring. And we'll see you in June. Thank you.